leadership in the activist movement. Her work has also appeared on PBS, Showtime, MTV, and other outlets, and she helps community groups and activist groups learn to kind of use the internet and to help get their own message out now. And so she plays a big part in helping the young generation kind of reach out. So I'd like to then just put it to you all to talk about what this means in the bigger picture.
I'm not Mike.
Oh, here I can make my mic.
So, first of all, we're honored to be here. I'm a product of Los Angeles public school system. Born and raised like a my parents have passed, and maybe somewhere on the grounds here would be very happy to see the work that we're doing. We made this film 10 years ago. We began making this film actually 14 years ago. It was a celebration of diversity. What we thought we were doing is making a film, a coming-of-age piece about our son and 1/3 of his classmates. We were looking at the benefits of this education that was being provided in an environment which we were told would look like the city of New York. Anybody been to New York? Yes. Well, they did keep that promise. And then ultimately, after the girls dropped out of the project, it became a piece about black boys and the sort of obstacles that they face. We'll talk about it a little later, but what we call implicit bias, unconscious racism. And it's a very appropriate term now because this is a celebration of Martin Luther King. And we have to acknowledge that we've made a lot of progress. I'm not worried about being lynched, but I deal with implicit bias every day. And so those of you who think this film is just about Dalton, have to think again, because I deal with implicit bias in the hospital, when I walk down the street, wondering if I'm going to get a cab, or whether or not I'm going to be searched, or whether or not I'm going to be followed in the store. And so this is a new frontier for us. So we didn't learn this when we started making the film. We were making a film about diversity. And what we realized when our son began to face these issues, we had another film, an important film. And I'm going to pass this to my wife because she's looking at me like, uh-oh, you're talking too much. But the first step is for it to be conscious and for us to be able to talk about these issues. And what we find is, particularly with the black middle class, we're not talking because we believe we've arrived. My wife is a product of the African diaspora.
Yes, originally from Haiti, and my mother's from Panama, but grew up in New York and Canada. I think the only thing I want to add to that, because I know we have a lot of other, important conversations we want to start with our panelists and with the audience. I think for us, ultimately, the film, we hope, serves a purpose of opening conversations that are difficult but that need to be had. Whether it's around implicit bias, whether it's around parenting, whether it's around, what's the best choice for us in terms of educating our children, but also even beyond that. I mean, we have been kind of propelled into developing this more extensive community engagement campaign out of the film that we've done because of the experts that we've come across on Black male achievement from across the country, and being exposed to their knowledge has really helped us realize that there are some things that we can do as individuals that can sort of make a difference, and that's the focus of the community engagement work that we're doing. So we want to also leave it in a positive note in the same way that, in celebration of Martin Luther King as well, because there are certain things, while the structural issues persist, There are things that we can do to maybe better prepare our sons to face the experiences that they face, or that they will face, so that they can keep a certain wholeness of themselves, a core sense of self, as they go out in the world. And so I'm going to leave it there, and you can learn more about the community engagement work that we're doing through our website, and some of the work that is also outside and through the book that we've put together. But I think it's important also to think about some of the elements of empowerment that we can kind of hold dear to ourselves.
Thank you. That was a great way to open the conversation, because, as you said, it raises issues of so many things, of education, of culture, of parenting, of society, and the bias that we'll encounter. And I think we know already that young black men and black men in general are in a troubled situation in this country. The statistics are terrible. Only about half of black male students that start high school will graduate. They're 3 times more likely to be suspended or expelled. There's always the old statistic that continues to float around, that there are more black men in prison than there are in college. And I think the film did an excellent job of showing why it is difficult and why it is complicated. And that it is not just, again, being middle class and made it. It's about race, it's about class, it's about culture, it's about history, and all those things can conspire to make life more complicated for young black men than for anyone else. As a parent, I think many of us have felt that pushing and that wanting the best. I was a single mother of 3 girls, and all this felt so familiar and made me grateful for once that I had girls. But I think it's just something that resonates with us on so many levels. And I guess, you're kind of a newcomer here to Los Angeles, Reverend Boyd, and you do a lot of work. Your church has been a leader in kind of, showing the way on issues like this. What did you take away from this that we ought to take away from this?
Dr. Charles did give this historian wrote summation of his experiences, like 4 ways to say it. One of them was whom the God will destroy. The first name anger destroys us. We see so many things that proliferate personal anger inside. Sometimes child does things that anger us. I was never so angry recently as I was when I left the theater to see 12 Years a Slave. Where's the social redemption in that for me? Does it do me good to hear and to see and watch the proliferation of the oppression that took place in those days and times, and offering no redemption for it in the end? Looking at young black men and understanding that yes, there are more than 50% incarceration rates, over less than 50% of those who are actually in colleges, universities. So where is it? What is it that puts a young black man, a young black boy on the track of not turning it home with the notice it's done, and actually completing it home and not turning it in at school with the class? These things lead them to slippery slope of juvenile crime and finding into a justice system that does him no good at all. So these things that continually anger us, not being able to advance, not being able to have the opportunity, going to places that they're actually being rejected, call it who they are, the color of their skin, and their racial association affiliation. And yet when we come together, it's not always the federal government, the state government, the civic community that comes in to help to get the problems solved and resolved. Sometimes it has to come from within. And when you begin to struggle with that anger that gets to build up, so if we can address the ways and means to help to decrease that and get everybody back to kind of a solid level playing field and look at opportunities as they are, it may help us. I came out of second grade school in the South, graduated in 1965, going
The anger issue, I think, is an interesting one, and it made me think of after Trayvon Martin, after the verdict came in and there was a protest and a peaceful protest down on Crenshaw, but the young people kind of peeled off and created their own protests going up and down Crenshaw and breaking windows and doing things, and it was an anger that was coming out. And I guess, we don't always know how to talk to them. Even it resonated in the movie when I think it was you were talking about, well, when I went to school this, or when my father went to school, and Idris rolled his eyes. And we're not always equipped to kind of understand their anger or address it, because in some ways it's like, what do you have to be angry about compared to what we had? And Dominique, I know you deal with some of these issues, and you hear from young people a lot, and you hear from people who talk about this. How do we kind of channel anger or understand anger in ways that will help young people go forward?
Well, there's a few things I want to just quickly say. First of all, though, I have to give honor to my father who passed on Thursday day, Munir Baraka, and I'm just really glad to be here with everybody, and I think he's a great and I love your columns. I really do. But I think the LA Times got that story wrong, because I lived